right, everyone. Welcome to the very first episode of Hot Tag that we're presenting to you here. This is something we've been talking about doing for a little bit now, and Sean and myself decided to get together and film the first episode tonight. My name's Jeff, by the way, AB Jeff, and this is Arson cousin Waldo, Sean, and a lot of people have come to me and they've said, why are you guys doing this show, and what is Hot Tag? Well, I'm going to take a moment to tell you. Sean and myself, we love going on wrestling road trips. We do this, and we'll spend the whole time, the farther the better. The whole time on the trip, we're talking about our favorite things in wrestling, our favorite wrestlers, favorite matches, we could talk wrestling all night. Mm-hmm. And we both have a shared love of tag team wrestling. There's so many shows out there that are focused on, reviews, old school reviews, new shows, everything, wrestling rumors, wrestling news. To our knowledge, we didn't know of any that was really focused on an aspect that we both have a deep love for, and that is tag team wrestling. So we thought this would be the perfect time. This show is going to be about nothing but tag team wrestling. We're going to talk about new tag team stuff, classic tag team stuff, not just American even. We're going to talk about international tag team wrestling, independent tag team wrestling, and it's just going to be focused on everything with that. There's going to be some episodes where we may focus on just one team or their matches. It's going to be all over the place, but it's all going to be based around just that, tag team wrestling.
Yeah, and all the things that you just described, Jeff, are basically describing one really hot tag scene right now, all over the world. Any show that you go to, I can tell you, we go to a lot of different kinds of shows. And, in the last, month, I've been at indie shows, at WWE shows, at British shows. And the one thing that all those shows have in common is the tag teams are still in the show. 9 times out of 10, if you watch any type of wrestling, whatever what tag matches on that show is still in it.
Yeah.
Perfect example, the NXT TakeOver. Probably saw I was in Orlando for WrestleMania and could have saw the best match I saw all weekend was a tag team match.
Yeah, that match was phenomenal.
Yeah.
You're right. And I think, this is something I wanted to ask you now that we're on the air. We saw so much talk in the last 2 years, maybe 3, about the women's revolution, and that's awesome.
Yeah,
we love women's wrestling too. That's awesome,
and we love women.
Yeah, right. Yeah, well, that's no doubt. But there for a long time, I feel like within professional wrestling, especially the mainstream, we'll say WWE especially scene, tag team wrestling really downplayed. The famous quote from Shane McMahon that he supposedly said to Paul London and Brian Kendrick, that nobody had cared about a tag team since the Legion of Doom. Mm-hmm. And, so I feel like for a long time, tag team wrestling was really kind of shunned and looked down upon. Are we on the cusp of seeing, much like the women's revolution, a tag team revolution?
I think we are, because if you're talking about, the highest level of wrestling in the WWE, for how many years did we see, it's particularly about the time the Attitude Era ended up till 3 or 4 years ago, tag teams were basically, hey, we've got these 2 guys, we've got nothing else to do with them, let's throw them together and see what happens, and you've got a tag team match. Most of the time the tag team titles weren't even defended on their biggest shows, right?
Oh, yeah.
So, now you've got tag teams where people are looking forward to seeing them. Now, I do think at that upper level of WWE, they're still ironing some things out, which I don't really understand with the amount of talent that they have in really great tag teams. But when you look at the indie scene and you look outside of WWE, the tag teams are the main event.
Oh, yeah.
Our favorite company, WVCW, how often can you see guys like the Ugly Ducklings, the Heat Seekers, all these different tag teams that come in for us now. And many times these guys are on top of the card.
Yeah. I mean, like you mentioned in specific, WVCW, just a month and a half ago, our big show, one of the biggest shows we've ever had, was a tag team tournament, Heartbroken. Yeah. And it drew a huge crowd of local fans. So I feel like, people are hungry for that. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of that is because there's a lot of wrestling fans that, even like in our area, or, in any area, that grew up watching these great tag teams of the 80s, and a lot of their love for wrestling was based around that. Mm-hmm. Think about it. When you think back growing up as a kid watching, some of my greatest memories were the Midnight Express, the Rock and Roll Express, the Freebirds, all these great teams. and even WWE, Demolition. I mean, just so many great tag teams. And I think people are hungry for that. And I think it's been neglected for so long.
I remember when I was a kid and first started watching wrestling, what I was exposed to the most was the WWF at that time. And two teams that I always looked forward to seeing was my favorite part of the card were the Rockers and the Hart Foundation.
Absolutely.
Two completely different teams, completely different styles, but for some reason, both of those teams registered with me. So, there were some teams I didn't look, like there were like the Bushwhackers, for example, which was fun, but, but those teams that really got down and wrestled is what I loved. And in that era, lots of times tag teams produced your future champions. And who do we get out of those teams? We got Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels.
And Marty Jannetty.
Joey Janela. Hey, he's marking out right now. But we got Shawn Michaels and Bret Hart, two of the greatest world champions of all time, right? So I miss that. I miss that being the way things were.
Excuse me.
And I miss, that tag teams produced that, and I'd like to see that again. But one thing I think that we're moving toward now, even away from that, is these teams are staying together a really long time. And that's important to keep in mind too, I think. I don't think we're seeing as much as that, okay, we're going to be a team for a while and we're going to have that breakup feud. Now we're seeing teams travel to different companies and across the world together and staying together for years, and I think that's exciting.
In some cases, traveling across the time and universe and space.
Yeah.
Yes, Matt Hardy.
Broken and unbroken and whatever.
But no, you're right, and I think that might be one of the things that's going to really help push this revolution, is the fact that what you're saying. I think for a long time, tag teams have even in the down era, like we'll say in WWE, they were looked at as a way to get one guy over.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's really the case we're seeing, because I do think there's some strong teams coming up even through the developmental system in WWE, which we'll talk about.
Yeah.
And I feel like a lot of the focus is starting to come back to that. And I mean, we just got through watching an episode of Raw, and I don't know when you're going to view this video in particular, but for instance, tonight on the episode of Raw we saw, we're 2 weeks into the Revival getting called up. And it's already, you've got them against the team that was, for the better part of 2 years, being built as a top act. Not just a top tag team, but a top act.
Yeah.
A top draw with the New Day. And I don't think that, like when you look at a team like the Revival, for instance, Dawson and Wilder.
Number 2 tag team in the world.
We'll talk about that in a minute. But like, okay, Dawson and Wilder. Neither of those guys to me strike me as guys that WWE, and don't get me wrong, I think they're both awesome, of course.
Sure.
But neither of those guys strike me as guys that WWE would ever look at and peg as this is our future main event guy. But they're pushing them as a tag team. And I think you're right, man. I think that's something different we're seeing now.
Take an example. You mentioned the New Day. As part of this revolution, as we've coined it, it wasn't, 2 years ago, that New Day was the top-selling merch person, whatever you want to call it, act in WWE.
Yeah.
Over WrestleMania weekend. Again, I just came back from Orlando, and believe me, there's a lot of merch you can buy.
Oh, I'm sure.
But a tag team was the top-selling act over the course of, I think it was WrestleMania 31. That's nuts. That's nuts. They outsold, the John Cena's and the, anybody else you can think of who really push a lot of merch. That they were the top selling act. And I think that continues. You and I, I guess a year and a half or so ago now, we drove all the way down to check out another company we really dig, PWX. What was on top of the card?
Oh.
Tag team wrestling.
The show was named after it.
That's right. That's right. You can see a poster back there on the wall from it. Yeah. I mean, so, tag team wrestling is in a revolution. I think you're right. And it's something that I'm more than happy to embrace, because it's something I've always loved.
Same here, man.
Yeah.
So we're talking about, where tag team wrestling's at currently. Seems like a good time to talk about currently who our favorite tag team is, because we both have deep feelings on all these teams. Sean, who's your favorite tag team?
Well, my favorite tag team, and let me say first of all, there are a lot of tag teams I genuinely love, and I'm a huge fan of right now. I love the Revival, I love American Alpha, I love Red Dragon, I love War Machine. I love, there's just a ton of the Heat Seekers, the Ducks, these people we see. I love them all. But to me, there's only one team that stands pretty high above all the rest and kind of maybe kicking the others down, and that being the Young Bucks. The Young Bucks. The Young Bucks. Because now I know Mr. Griffith's going to give us a whole different opinion here in a minute, but there's only, me and this man have traveled the roads many times and saw teams. And I can promise you, I've only seen him have to get out of his seat, go get a beverage, and cool off after one axe match. And that'd be the Young Bucks. There's not... guys, I've been going to wrestling matches my entire life. I love it. I have never seen anyone, first of all, that can light up a crowd the way the Young Bucks can. Nobody sells merch on the indie level like the Young Bucks can.
No one.
No one. And no one is as polarizing without being in the WWE. Now, I know I've got friends out there. We'll go down to Walmart and ask who do they know. I guarantee you.
That sounded like somebody I know.
Was it a Russian accent? I don't know.
No, I thought it sounded more like an old man.
Oh, well, okay. It could go either way there, but I love both those guys.
Yeah.
But, I guarantee you go to just about any wrestling show, even a WWE show, and there's one tag team you can mention, and the majority of that crowd will still know them, and they've never been in the WWE. So I respect a team that can do that can get that over without the McMahon machine behind them pushing them to do that. And if anybody's wondering, I hope they never go to WWE, because we've seen some weird things happen.
So, before I get to my pick,
yeah,
don't get me wrong. I'm gonna say first of all, my pick is not the Young Bucks. However, if it wasn't for the team I'm going to pick, my pick would be the Young Bucks. Honestly, I love the Young Bucks, and we've had so much fun, kind of stalking them a little bit in North Carolina at different points.
Super nice guys too.
Yeah. Oh yeah, we took selfies with them
many times.
But, you see, what I want to ask you. You genuinely never want to? You hope they never go to WWE?
I honestly hope that. I honestly do. And I'm going to tell you why. Granted, let me say it like this. I would hope for them to make that WWE money one day because they deserve it. But I feel like, and God, I'm starting to sound like, a smart. Lord help me, but that's what's happening right now. But,
don't schmidt it up.
Oh, Lord. Well, yeah, Sasha Banks. But anyway, WWE has a way of ruining things.
They can.
And I just am fearful that if they ever go there, the good old Vince or whoever is going to try to take the credit for what they are. We've seen it with so many other things. We were talking about the New Day. One of my three guys that I absolutely love. I mean, in the ring, they're entertaining as heck. But what happened? They got over on their own. They were in a gimmick that was set up to fail. They got over on their own, and then what happens? WWE pretty much, just overexposes them. Next thing you know, they're shoved down your throat all the time. And it makes it kind of, So WWE has that way of doing that. And I just worry for the world-famous Jackson brothers that the same thing would happen to them. Now, granted, if they ended up there, would I be mad about it? No.
Wouldn't that kind of fit their shtick, though?
Yeah,
I say they purposely try to shove themselves down your throat.
Yeah, I guess
That's kind of their gimmick. I think.
So.
I don't know. I think it could work out.
I hope.
And I think, me personally, I do think we will see them there.
I do too.
I think the only thing that kept us from seeing them there recently was the fact that Kenny Omega didn't sign.
Yeah.
I feel like if Kenny would have signed, they would have went.
Well, supposedly AJ wanted to bring him with him too.
Yeah. But my favorite team, I feel like they do exist within that WWE machine. And but I spoke about them earlier, and I genuinely feel they're the best tag team on the planet currently. And that would be the Revival. I think that Scott Dawson is better than your favorite wrestler, whoever it is. And
what's your favorite wrestler, Scott Dawson?
Then it opens up a weird. That's how you get broken Hardys. It opens up a weird paradox. Yeah, but no, I think the Revival. That this was a team that got stuck together in NXT. Two dudes. Super solid dudes from our region, more or less. I mean, got their start CWF Mid-Atlantic with Brad Stutz, working around that way, different places. I know that they've got a lot of connections in that area, and but these two dudes both ended up in NXT, and when they got stuck together as a team, they wasn't initially, I don't think, like anywhere close to what they've become. But we've watched them mature, and they had that combination of old school ethics with the ability to work what we like to call the new kayfabe style. Work with those teams and incorporate that old school sensibility perfectly and seamlessly within the new kayfabe framework to where in a world of flips, they could make a fist mean just as much, and I feel like augment the flips in the process. And it's kind of like when you watch a movie, I feel like, people say you can't have a great hero without a great villain. And I feel like it's in life, you can't have a great one thing without its polar opposite being just as strong. I feel like in this new sense of like things that we love with the flippy teams, because we do love that, and it's exciting as it can be to watch, I feel like the Revival are almost like the glue that's going to hold all that together in this tag team revolution, because they do have that old school sensibility, and they have a way of making those old school things seem like the freshest, newest things you've ever saw. Mm-hmm. That's something pretty special. And just the series of matches, I will say, I genuinely feel, and this is a man, I'm not ashamed to say, I turned 40 years old this week.
Happy birthday.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
I've been watching wrestling for 35 of those 40 years at least. Mm-hmm. About 5 years old when I started. Mm-hmm. I never was one of those lapsed fans. I never watched and then quit for a while. No, once I started, it never quit. Here I am 35 years later. I've watched a lot of tag team wrestling is what I'm going to say. I genuinely believe the best tag team match I ever saw in my life happened in the last year and a half. And that was the Revival and DIY, 2 out of 3 falls. I can't think of a better tag team match. And I feel like a lot of that, and big props to DIY, that's a team I'm sure we'll cover on the show at some point. But I genuinely feel like the Revival, if you look at the string of work that they've had in the last few years, I can't put any other team above them. And even a team I love, like the Young Bucks, I can't quite put them above them. So, but in a perfect world, I'm hoping that at some point we get that match. I mean, Lord knows Cody Rhodes wants it. Right?
Well, I agree with Cody Rhodes. But let me say this. I do love the Revival, too. Don't ever think that I'm taking anything away from them. Because, like Jeff said, I do feel like they're one of the greatest tag teams in the world. And they are the kind of guys that you build around. Mm-hmm. I mean, they're those mechanic kind of guys that you can build a company around. Like Jeff said, I think Scott Dawson is one of the best wrestlers on the planet. Dash is great, too. But I feel like Scott Dawson is fantastic. But I still, even though I love the Revival, and I love that match with DIY as well. I love all the matches with DIY. I love their matches with American Alpha. Oh, yeah. I still say that feud could be the next Midnight Rock and Roll feud. I really believe that because both those teams are that good, just like DIY as well. But there's just still something about the Young Bucks for me. There's still something about the excitement that they bring that I just don't feel like anybody else brings. And I'll tell you, and me being, you guys know if you talk to me online or in person, I love to debate wrestling. And the more I'm debated that someone is bad, probably the more I'm going to defend them. Oh, yeah. And I become more invested in it. And that's the thing. But we almost all agree the Revival's great. I mean, I can't imagine anybody ever saying the Revival aren't great wrestlers. But a lot of people do say that about the Young Bucks.
I promise you, now that they're on the main roster, you'll have those smart fans. I'll never like the Revival.
Sasha Banks. But, that's okay. That's okay. But fantastic wrestlers. And it is, and I guess the Bucks going to WWE is the only way I'd ever get that feud. But that's a feud I really want somewhere, whether it's in the WWE or in that field where they were shooting a show in Orlando a few weeks ago. Wherever that happens, that feud would be fantastic. And it writes itself. We've got flips versus fists. Who wins? Who knows?
Fists all day.
Well, I would do a flip, but that might end poorly.
Well, with that, we do want to say thank you for watching this first episode. We're going to be bringing you many more. This is once that hot tag happens, baby, we're hooting and punking it. We're flipping all around the ring.
We'll take my glasses off.
Yeah, don't do it. Don't do it.
Okay, sorry.
But
eyes get crazy.
So we're going to be coming back at you with the new episodes all the time. What we want you to do is to let us know what you would like to hear us talk about, if there's a specific tag team match, if there's a specific tag team, whatever the subject might be, as long as it has to do with tag team wrestling, let us know. We're going to talk about it for you, and we'll give you a shout out on the air if we use your suggestion. Absolutely,
and the other thing is too, we're going to bring, like I said, like Jeff said, this is a pilot episode. We're just trying to give you a taste of what we're doing. We're going to talk about a lot of things we agree on. We're going to talk about a lot of things we disagree on. We'll hopefully give you some pretty good debate on those things. But do let us know what you want to hear. Already, people are rolling in some different topics that I think will be fantastic for the show. If there's a match that you want us to take a look at and give you an opinion on, we'll be glad to do that as well. well. And speaking of matches, I definitely think we should always leave our viewers with something to go check out. So if you haven't checked it out, get on the WWE Network, get on the YouTubes, whatever you got to do, and check out the tag team match, the triple threat from NXT TakeOver Orlando. Check that out. Fantastic match. Probably the best match of WrestleMania weekend. Let's check that out.
Good choice. Yeah, definitely. And if you do check it out and you haven't yet, let us know what you think about that too.
Yeah.
So, we're just going to let you know how to get in touch with us. You can get in touch with me at on Facebook at Jeff Griffith, or you can hit us up on Instagram or Twitter. or Snapchat. You can hit me at Jeff from WV. Sean, how can they get in touch with you?
Facebook, Sean Allen. On basically everything else: Instagram, Snapchat, Twitter at Professor Waldo. That's at Professor_Waldo. So hit me up, or flip on over and check me out over here at home. I'd love to see you flip in.
And I may end up at some point. I'd like to get some snail mail. I think some snail mail would be fun. I may have to put my address up here at some
that'd be
point.
cool.
Or I might just put the Arson compound address.
Yeah.
Let Matt deal with it in case anything weird comes.
Yeah. If you want to see us, go to Matt's house.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. So, for AB Jeff,
Cousin
Waldo, this has been the Arson Brothers Network presents Hot Tag, and there you go. We'll see y'all next time.